Hey guys, and welcome to the first installment of our Lighting 101 series. Today we're going to talk about the quality of light, what it is, how to control it, and why it matters. Watch your eyes. Now, when we say quality of light, we aren't talking about how good the light is. In the most basic sense, we're talking about how the light behaves, how it interacts with your subject, and the effect it creates. It really comes down to two things, whether the light is hard or soft. Okay, so now let's compare hard and soft light. We have Ellery here lit with a very hard light, and the first thing you're going to notice is a lot of people would describe this as harsh, because hard light casts very defined and sharp shadows, and you can see this by the shadows cast on her face and the back wall. So now we have Ellery in very soft lighting. Unlike hard light, which has a very directional path, soft light tends to wrap around its subject, therefore the shadows cast by soft light are much more gradual with softer edges. So let's look at both of them up close. See how the hard light casts a shadow with a very distinct edge. You can see this cast by Ellery's nose and on the back wall. By contrast, the soft light casts a very gradual shadow on her face, and the shadow on the back wall is barely there. So what makes a light hard or soft? Can I just go out and buy a soft or hard light? Well, that's not really how it works. The hardness or softness of a light is determined by the size and distance relative to its subject. So basically, the smaller your light is compared to your subject, the harder the light will be, and vice versa. The bigger your source is compared to your subject, the softer the light will be. Okay, but wait. What about the sun?
Cue the sun.
The sun is huge, but it acts like a really hard light source that casts tons of shadows. Well, yes, the sun is enormous, but it's also 93 million miles away, which means it usually appears to be about the size of a fingernail in the sky, relative to our perspective here on Earth. If it were closer, appearing much bigger in the sky, the sun could be an extremely bright, beautifully soft source, but we'd also be really, really extremely dead. So distance is an important factor when considering the relative size of your source. Generally, the closer the source is, the softer the shadows are going to be. Just look at how shadow puppets work. If you hold your hands too close to the light, the shadows are soft and blurry. But if you put enough distance between your hands and the light, the shadows are sharp and clear. So to recap, the difference between a hard and soft light is how it renders shadows, and the hardness and softness of a light is controlled by the size and distance relative to the subject. So what's the deal with diffusion? So diffused light is often confused for soft light, and honestly at this point they're often considered the same thing since usually they're used together. But while soft light is primarily defined by the relative size to the subject, diffused light is when light passes through a physical material, whether it's gel diffusion, particles in the air like dust, haze, or smoke, or pass through silks or fabrics like muslin. All of these diffuse the light, meaning they scatter the light, spreading it across the entire material and emitting what looks like a more even light. An easy way to understand this is to look at a flashlight. Let's hit the lights. So let's shine this flashlight against a flat wall. Notice there's a very bright spot in the middle. That's called a specular highlight, and that's caused by the bright bulb in the middle of the flashlight. So now, if we add some diffusion, the specular highlight basically disappears and it spreads out the light evenly over its radius. So let's go back to Ellery and put diffusion on the hard light. What the diffusion is doing is evening out the light that's hitting your subject, reducing glare and smoothing out the specular highlights. The light appears more even across your subject, but the edges of your shadows will mostly remain the same. But ultimately, the one-two punch that diffusion can offer is this. It can diffuse the light and increase the physical size of your source at the same time. So let's look at this light panel. This is a 1x1 Astra. It's about a square foot in size. Let's add a softbox to it. So now we have a more diffused light and a larger source. This is 24 inches across. If we want something bigger, let's look at this Solis 6 Fresnel. It's about the size of my hand. But if I turn it around and bounce it off of this bounce card, now we have a light source the entire size of this card. And last but not least, if you have an 8x8 silk, you can turn this light into an 8-foot wide source, or 64 square feet. So now that we know what hard light and soft light do and how to control them, what are we communicating by using them? The quality of light alone can tell us an incredible amount of things. It can orient us.
And then there was light.
Give us clues to where we are, what time of day it is.
A beautiful sunset.
Are we seeing the soft, gentle light of dawn or the harsh, direct light of midday? Are we in a hot, sweaty city in the summer?
You're sweating.
Or in the middle of a cold, dull winter in the country? It can create an atmosphere, the mood of a place or time, how we should feel in a space or a moment. Are we seeing harsh streetlights casting dangerous-looking shadows around us in a shady part of town? Or are we walking along familiar city sidewalks with warm, inviting light spilling out from neighbors' windows? Is the smoky, hazy spotlight of a jazz club dazzling the room and making our leading lady glow? Or is the stark, direct spotlight onto a large theater stage making our actor feel trapped and the room dark and tense? And going even further, it can portray our characters in literally a flattering or unflattering light, revealing to the audience who they are. Are they mysterious and alluring?
I've been dead once already.
Or are they repulsive and hardened to the world? Are they deeply in love, or are they in deep turmoil? Do they look youthful and bright, or is the wisdom of their years etched deeply into the wrinkles of their face? You can say a lot with quality of light, and the best part is the same principles in film lighting on professional sets apply to your lights at home. So now that you know how to control the quality of light, you can find creative ways to achieve it. If you want to create soft light, find ways to make your source bigger. Use homemade diffusion like a shower curtain or a bed sheet to create a large, soft source in front of your subject. And if you want to create hard light, use smaller sources or move big, powerful sources farther away to get those harsher shadows. So don't be afraid to test things out and try out new things. It doesn't matter if your rig looks like a weird duct-taped together monstrosity or an arts and crafts project. If it creates a light that helps you tell your story, then it's the perfect light. So keep an eye out for future Lighting 101 tutorials, but in the meantime, try these techniques out yourself and show them to us. Head over to our forums, right here, and show us what you came up with. Have fun!